Nobody prepared me for how stressful that would be to set up a freaking light and a phone. I tried a microphone. I need assistance. I can't do that on my own. Anyway, okay, so let's rock and roll. I've not had an opportunity to wear this hat, and since today we're at home, we're not at my workshop, I have all my props and my personal possessions around. So I'm thinking I'm gonna wear this for the duration of the video. Isn't it just gorgeous? Me love it. So the biggest question I get on YouTube and Instagram in my DMs is, how did you get to where you are? What was your journey like? Have you got any tips and tricks for me on my jewelry making journey, essentially? I spent a few days ago on the computer going through all my hard drives. I have like a mega hard drive called the Brain where my whole life exists. I don't pay for Google Photos. I don't like having all my memories available at any second on my phone. I really like the fact, like, I have to make the conscious effort to go back into a hard drive, open it up, reveal my life and indulge in it for a little bit of time. I don't like the fact that memories are so easily attainable these days. Anyway, I've been on the Brain and I've been on my Lacy and I've gone through all of my jewelry photos from the last 4 years and I've picked out my favourites. There's probably quite a few, and whilst we look at them, I'm going to tell you the story of how I ended up here, how I ended up being a full-time jeweller, how I developed my craft, how I made it all happen. So I'm just going to levy this whole thing by telling you that I didn't always want to be a jeweller. In fact, like, I'd never really even considered it as a profession. When I was a child, I wanted to be an artist, I wanted to be a writer, an architect, a fashion designer. My bedroom wall used to be laden with plans for houses. Like, I would draw the architectural plans and I would have fashion designs all over the walls. I wrote stories for days. I remember submitting, like, I spent one summer writing, like, honestly, I'm not even joking, like a 500-page story on Texties about these kids who went to an ancient Egyptian museum like display exhibition and then got transported back in time. It was a bit, I was really into the Famous Five at that point in my life. Anyway, I submitted it to Blue Pizza. I submitted the first chapter. My mum would not let me post a 500-page document. Print it out, I think, was probably more of the situation. All of these things, I always wanted to do these things all my life, and then I ended up going to university to do a photography degree, which was fantastic. I'd never studied art before in my life, and I got to study this beautiful combination of fine art and photography. And since I'd never studied art before, honestly, I spent those 4 years pretty much with my head in books in the library and occasionally taking photographs. But a lot of it was based around narratives and building stories and dressing characters, building characters. I always really liked that kind of, I liked that sort of theatricality and dressing up and the make-believe, which probably carried on from childhood, to be honest. In 2020, obviously the pandemic happened and I was in my last year of uni, working towards my final major project, and we went home, right? Everything stopped, the world shut down. Back to my parents' house in Devon and set about making a project pretty much from scratch, because everything I've been doing at university had been, you know, I needed all the resources, the facilities. I think I was even going to 3D print things. So obviously I returned back home with nothing but my camera, my body and my sketchbook to make art with, and spent the next few months pretty much obsessing over that, like working on that all the time as something to do. And then one day I handed it all in and it was over. This was about the same time that TikTok entered my life. I don't know when TikTok came about, but I definitely didn't download it until the pandemic. And I saw this beautiful witchy woman making silver spoons into silver ring. And I thought, oh my gosh, this looks fantastic. How much would this cost me to do? So I bought some spoons off of eBay and a few of the basic tools. I asked my dad kind of like, what would you use to do this? Do you have anything in the garage? I'll buy the extra stuff. My dad showed me how to like kind of bend the ring around a mandrel and hammer it, and off I popped and went and did that. I've actually got a photograph here of the very first spoon ring in making. And for a while I was pretty obsessed with spoons coming out of my ears, honestly. Let's make a spoon ring.
Isn't that just the most adorable thing? Excuse my very dead plant up there, I really need to water him. But baby Annie making her first spoon rings. And I even made a highly instructional video with lots of noise for you to understand what was going on.
I made a lot of spoon rings, but they sold and they were great at markets. People loved them. People would send me like their heirloom spoons or ones that their family members had owned. And so I was making spoons and spoons and spoons. And I even bought these, I don't know if I can find a photo of them, I hope I can, these like chicken claw sugar tongs and turned them into rings. They were actually really cool. I would really like to recreate them. I feel like they would still fit with the brand today. The first few years of me making jewellery were really experimental. I tried so many different processes. So my dad is an inherently creative person and he would often go on his own YouTube deep dives and come back to me with like project ideas or send me videos of things that he's seen, things he wanted to try. And he discovered this thing called electroforming, which is basically like gold plating, but you leave the pieces in for a really long time. So a lot of metal adds on. I've got some photos here, like the textures it makes are wild. So we set about like buying all of the equipment and the tools, and this was really fun because you had to use like proper PPE and there was really like hazardous substances. I think sulfuric acid is one of the things that you use. So we began making this gorgeous electroformed jewellery. Yes, some of the textures on these electroformed pieces were amazing. They've really got me excited. And you know, I could start to see, obviously I've been making spoons, but I could start to see the kind of textures, the form, the shape that I wanted to be able to make in silver. We did some research, obviously, and looked into how can we make silver jewellery in the same electroforming process, but potassium cyanide was one of the key ingredients. And as I was using my sister's bedroom, she'd moved out, my sister's bedroom as my workshop during this time, the family decided collectively that we did not want potassium cyanide in the house, because we have doggies as well. Like, yeah, it didn't feel safe enough. This whole process, this whole endeavor to making jewelry was very DIY, very much that I'm limited by my materials, I'm limited by my knowledge. And the two kind of like moving up and up like this, I would skill up with some knowledge, I'd skill up with some tools, or like, and they would buffer each other to the point where I discovered a aesthetic that really worked. So as I continued to cut up bits of spoons and make more spoon rings, try and learn how to solder bezel settings around stones, really sort of simple jewelry making, I was messing up a lot, making loads of mistakes. I was ending up with loads of silver in my scraps pot and kind of not knowing what to do with it. Then I don't know how this happened. I don't remember the day, I don't remember the time, but I began reticulating these silver scraps. So I'd lay them in a circle and then I'd reticulate them, or I'd lay them in blobs and just hold the blowtorch over them for ages and ages and ages until they formed some sort of like organic mass. You know, this way of making, this sort of very slow reticulation, I made some gorgeous pieces that I was so proud of. You know, I felt like at this point I'd really found my aesthetic, and so I kept making things like this for around a year or so. And all the time I'm doing this, I have part-time jobs, I have little jobs. I worked in Costa, in a petrol station, I worked in a pub for a little bit, and then I finally landed a like full-time digital marketing job. I sold garden plants on the internet, optimizing Google ads. Very exciting stuff, darlings. Anyway, I did that for about 9 months and I worked on the jewelry in the background. I did markets and I sold stuff online. That was a great balance. I had loads of money during this time, to be fair. But after 9 months of doing this digital marketing job, you know, I was staring at a screen all day. I'd moved up to Scotland at this point, so I was sitting in my room, in my little studio desk room, office. You'd call it an office, wouldn't you? I was sat in my little office. The sun would rise at like 9:30. I'd been sat there since 8:30. Then at 3:30 the sun would set and I'd be there till 5. And you know, I was seeing no daylight. Your body tells you when you really aren't doing well with something, that you're really like stressed and having a bad time. I ended up having a thunderclap headache and went to hospital. They gave me like a CT scan. I had to stay the night in hospital as well. And as for someone who, touch wood, and luckily is not a sick person, I've been to hospital like the day I was born, and then this because of this headache another time. I found it quite scary. Took some time off work afterwards and essentially rang up and said, I'm not coming back. This life, this thing we have, it's pretty damn precious, isn't it? Do I want to spend my whole life sat in front of a computer doing work for somebody else when, like, living in that digital realm entirely and not actually spending any real time enjoying my life? Like, I'm sat at this desk 9 to 5, 8:30 till 5 days a week, and on the weekends I'm shattered. Like, this is no life. I don't have any time for my art, I don't have time for like me. And I sold my car, I sold some things around the house. I think I managed to gather about 4 months worth of like rent and bills to just try and make this business work, to see if I could manage to do it. And during this time that I got to spend at home, I learned how to make so much jewelry. I really played around with different styles, and again was massively limited to what my materials were around me. I was like selling stuff all this summer. I think I was probably making like £1,000 a month or something, like revenue from the jewelry at this point. And then my ex's mum took me on a jewelry making course. I looked after her dog for a weekend or a week or something, and she paid for me to go to this course in Glasgow. Oh, it was absolutely amazing. I turn up in this room, this massive room with massive windows, and there's like 25 jewelers benches, and they've got all of the tools that I could only have ever dreamed of. I was honestly, like, my jaw dropped. I was gulping. The whole thing was wonderful. And over this 2-day weekend course, they taught us some enameling and we did some water casting. I fell in love with the water casting. I couldn't believe these shapes and these textures, and I loved that every piece that came out was unique. One of the things I really wanted to push from day one was kind of, we should all have unique things. I hate that cookie cutter style that sits everywhere, you know. You've got your H&M girls, your Zara girls, your Primark girls, like your Hollister girls. Like, I know that it's different now. That shows my age, doesn't it? Watching this video back, I'm actually inclined to very disagree with myself, because I think there's way less diversification in cookie cutter style than there ever has been. Everyone very much wears the same. It's very much Kardashian-esque, muted tones. There's very like basics you wear every day, neutral colors, sort of flattering but uninteresting. And there's specific trainers that everybody has, and you see like the majority of people wearing this stuff. You don't sort of get that diversification of all those different high street stores anymore, and I guess it's probably because they don't exist. But I always hated when I was growing up that was what the vibe was. Like, everybody had a certain little look, and I wanted to make jewelry that was for people who wanted to dress different. Anyway, at this course, they showed me how to do water casting, and if you want to learn how to do water casting, you can watch my little video right here. It's such a great little project and so easy to do at home. On the last day at this course, I literally went up to the lady running it and was like, please, can I come and work with you? How can I get access to this space? Like, can I clean? Can I help teach? Can I just, like, I don't know, make tea and coffee, whatever, work for free kind of thing? And she was like, leave it with me, Annie, I'll see what we can do. And she returns back like maybe a month later or whatever, and offers me, in exchange for doing some digital marketing for them, access to the space. And then she also told me about this program that Vanilla Ink run. Vanilla Ink's the company that, like, the workshop that I went and did the class at. They offer this course, right? And this course is like professional teaching, stone setting, advanced jewelry making, more than what one can get off YouTube. There's only so much you can get off YouTube. Like, there comes to a point where you need a professional or a professional class to get you like down the next steps, to introduce you to the real techniques and everything like that. Anyway, she said about this course, but it's $5,000. I'd need to get some funding, because obviously I'd like taken all this time off to try and make my business work, to teach myself how to make jewelry. I did not have $5,000 to spend just willy-nilly on a course. I spent the next 6 months with Vanilla Ink and in the workshop most days, doing a little bit of digital marketing for them, and I learned how to sandcast, which changed my life, honestly. I absolutely adore sandcasting, and I learned how to cast in place. I made these amazing rings with opalite in them, and I think the opalite rings was one of the first rings that like went viral, like virals, and that's strong. I think the post got like 3,000, 4,000 organic likes or something. And I was like, honestly, my knees were quaking. I was so happy. You know, the longer I was there, I just got introduced to new techniques, new ways of working. There was always someone on hand to ask a question if you wanted to know the answer, and I was just honestly so grateful to have access to this wonderful space. So I worked my butt off, and I also worked my butt off in writing an application to Creative Scotland for £5,000. In December, just before Christmas, I got the email saying that I had been accepted and that they were going to give me £5,000, just free money to go and study jewellery some more. So I ended up with a fully funded place in a communal workshop for 24/7 access to this workshop, teaching every 2 weeks. I got to learn different types of stone setting, finishing, polishing, and it essentially just play free for a whole year. And like, I took the year away from the business pretty much. Like, I tried to sell a little bit here and there because obviously I needed to like sustain myself and sustain my life. I didn't put the focus on selling and put the focus on, you know, doing shop drops and making new products. I focused on the practice and upskilling. I've got this photo here of like the first time we ever did pave. You probably won't see it very well, but honestly, for someone who's never done it before, it's pretty good. I was placed in this workshop for a whole year, and it was getting towards the end of the year, like end of 2023. I had no idea what I was going to do next. I think I must have applied for like 10 different jobs. Didn't get any of them. And then my friend sent me a Instagram story of another girl in the city who was like a jeweler and looking to share her workspace. So I went and met her, and she so luckily offered me to share the space with her. We start sharing the space. I sell like all my camera equipment, hence me shooting this on my iPhone still, because I still haven't replaced my camera equipment. We'll get there. And bought myself a jeweler's bench, built a desk, built a tool. And then in February, she messages me saying she's going to move back home. Do I want to take the space on my own? When I told my dad was like, it sounds like Annie's been praying under the moon with her crystals in the garden. I ended up with the studio on my own. So obviously the problem that needs solving then is, where do we find that extra £300 a month to rent the studio? So I started offering classes, and this year I'm really going to try and pursue YouTube. I like this long form format. I'm really not a shorts girly. Like, I can get enticed by shorts and sit there and watch them for hours, especially if I'm feeling anxious or worried or depressed or whatever. I can lose myself in them, but like, I don't enjoy them as a form of communicating. I don't think I come across, you don't get to see the best parts of me in shorts, right? The best part of me is this and my beautiful hair. Anyway, so I've ended up having the studio to myself, and this is like, you know, the next step of this whole journey for me is to find enough multiple streams of income to make it work and keep upskilling, keep developing my skill set. I'd love to sort of try and move towards the exhibition art gallery sort of arena. I'm more of an art gallery person than like your fashion store kind of person. Overproducing stuff isn't going to work well for me at all. I'm very slow and like to take my time. Is that really my whole jewelry journey? Seems like it's just... I'm not training to be a jeweler here. I'm training to be a jewelry artist. Like, I'm training to take these techniques, take these processes. I don't want to be able to replicate them perfectly, because you can just go to Diamond Heaven and buy that. I want to use those techniques to inform my art practice, to make it mean something. For me, the end goal is, I'm not there yet, but my end goal is meaningfulness.